I want to welcome everybody to this webinar, End the Struggle of Saving Money. That title actually comes from our very own Mark Prather, who has a wonderful outlook on making sure that Americans can live the American dream and can truly save money and build wealth. And he's going to be talking to us tonight. Today we're joined by Sal Salinas, a top producing agent. We're joined by Mark Prather, the founder of Mark One Mortgage and Wealth Academy, and by Phil Atwan. He is the senior vice president for Exchange Resources, and that's one of the largest accommodators, intermediaries in the nation. And so we're so glad to have you guys here. I'm going to tell you more about our guests momentarily, but I just want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us today. This is actually going to be live streamed now, and in addition to that, it will be available as a recording. Sal is going to have that. I know many of you probably know our own Sal Salinas. But again, thank you for being here. Attendees are coming in right now, and we're going to give it a few more minutes before we get started with the meat of things. So again, thank you for being here, and it'll be just a few more moments. And now we'll sit here like the Brady Bunch.
There's a story.
By the way, John.
Yes.
Here's my book.
Oh, Why the Rich Stay Rich and the Poor Stay Poor. And I've got that. I'm going to be talking more about that shortly.
Okay.
So where's that available?
It's on Amazon.
Okay, awesome. Amazon. Do you do Kindle and like paperback?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. I can actually put that out there. All right, we've got quite a few attendees coming in, so we're going to be starting. Again, thank you everyone for being here, and we're going to start with having a close friend of mine, Sal Salinas, who is a top producing agent, and his specialization is in helping his clients and the people he meets make the transition from not just owning real estate, maybe as your home, as your residence, but also in how you can begin to get into investment real estate and build passive income. So I do want to introduce our very own Sal Salinas. Sal, why don't you take it away?
Hey, John, thank you very much for the introduction. I also like to take a moment to thank our other guest, Mark Prather with Mark One Wealth Academy. He's our financial guru. And Phil Atwan from Exchange Resources, who can facilitate a 1031 exchange when you have an investment property and you're going to replace it with another. And what he can do is help you defer your capital gains tax with his services. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. That should be coming up. Share. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
John, do you see my screen?
I do. You're good.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Let me move this over here. Okay. So thank you again. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. So the idea of this webinar came from this year has been an odd year with 2020 and COVID-19. And with that, I've had many clients that are still looking to buy investment properties. And in this market, there's been, some challenges, and I wanted to kind of convey that to, other, potential buyers or past clients that are looking to, purchase a property and kind of be aware of what challenges can come up with buying a property in this era. So I'd like to go ahead and start with that. I think there's, here we go here. Okay, so first I wanted to see.
And Sal, sorry to interrupt. I'm not actually, I don't know if anybody else is, but I'm not seeing your presentation right now. There we go. Perfect.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
All right, I just had to click one more little button there. All right, all right. So first, when I'm working with a client, I want to identify what kind of buy are you, what kind of investment are you looking for? There's, multiple, multi-unit type that can vary from a duplex, up to 4-unit. And then there's also, of course, 5 units and up, which would be considered more of a commercial purchase. And I just took some pictures here of, or captured some pictures here of some other duplexes and triplexes that you can identify with. The first one on the top left looks like a home, but there's a unit in the back. So from the front, it just looks like a standard home, and then it has like a long driveway that leads to the unit in the back. The one on the top right is more of a 2-story 2-unit, and then you can see another house in the back, which would make it a triplex. And then you have like a standard California home that very more of a compact size. The gray one there on the bottom left, again, driveway on the side and with a front unit, second or third in the back. And then you also have another duplex here on the bottom right. That is, you have the bottom unit and then the top unit with just some parking and a little bit of a backyard. So one thing to identify as a buyer is what kind of buyer are you? Are you going to be occupying this one of the units in the property, right? Or if it's a duplex, are you going to be occupying one of the 2 units? In that case, we need to find a property or duplex or triplex that has at least 1 vacant unit, and that can be key with your financing. That can really be determine how much of a down payment or minimum down payment you can bring in with, and Mark can probably touch on that later when he speaks as well. And a couple questions to ask why you're looking for properties. So, is a current owner living in the unit that can be delivered vacant? So, if the owner's looking to sell a property, more than likely he's going to be vacating, and possibly purchasing another property, or maybe he's just cashing out. In that event, we know that unit can be delivered vacant, and if you're going to occupy it, then you can obviously move in. Well, in some cases, if all the units are rented out, will at least one of the tenant cooperate with vacating one of the units? These are questions that we need to ask while we're searching for properties before we consider putting in an offer. And will you be a non-owner occupying landlord? A non-owner occupying landlord is more than likely an investor who is just looking to purchase an investment property and create some cash flow on their property. So is the investor looking for vacant units to rent at market rent? So some of these properties that we're coming across are, you could have a duplex, a triplex that they're all occupied, and we have to kind of get the rent roll of these properties. So we have to find out how much rent's being collected per unit. And sometimes some of these units, they disclose that. Sometimes they don't do a very good job of that. So we have to call the listing agent and find out what exactly the rents are being collected. In some cases, the rents might be relatively low, and that just might not make sense for you as an investor. And then we can just kind of move on and go on to the next property. And then also, of course, what is your budget? If you're financing, what is your pre-approved amount, right? And if you're a cash buyer, what would be your budget with your cash purchase? This page here, I'd like to kind of go on with the LA market. So it's been quite challenging to see, to find properties out there. I did some reports as of today. Currently, I found there's 762 active properties that are between 2 and 4 multi-units. Now, this is all LA, whether it's LA City or the unincorporated portion of LA, greater LA area. And that's a decent amount of active properties, and most of them have been on the market for quite some time. So that kind of tells me that tenants are not able to or willing to relocate. And then within the last 90 days, I found there's 257 properties that closed, and then 245 properties that are in escrow. And these also have been in escrow for quite some time. So again, I think during this pandemic, you know, we do have that eviction moratorium. So I think a lot of escrows are just kind of on hold and waiting to see how this, you know, plays out. And then we have this, or what I thought was very interesting, was 225 properties that expired or came off the market. So these are properties that were on the market. They were, you know, they had it in contract and they just could not sell them. So again, I think this is relative to probably tenants being in these units. They could have been there with paying low rents that just doesn't make sense to purchase. Or, you know, a lot of these properties, maybe at least one unit could not be delivered vacant, which is what maybe a owner occupied will be looking for. So with that, and, you know, searching for these properties, we found a lot of these properties are tenant occupied. Some are, you know, willing to relocate. They say they're going to relocate. It takes longer than anticipated. It could be, or they're just not, you know, going to relocate. They know that there's a moratorium, so they're just going to play it out. You know, they don't necessarily have to pay rent at this time, but, you know, at the end of the moratorium, you know, the rent will be due. So I think a lot of these tenants are just playing it out. Another thing we found out is a lot of these units, there's a lot of people that have been in these units for 20 years, and for whatever reason, the landlord did not raise the rent. Maybe they were being, you know, very nice or renting out to friends or family, and they just weren't raising rent. So, I mean, I came across some rents that were $500, $600 for a 2 or 3 bedroom unit, and understandably, if I was a tenant, I probably wouldn't move either. So they have a tremendous deal. I mean, why would they move? Because anywhere they're going to move, they're just going to end up paying, you know, probably 3 or 4 times as much. And again, you know, one unit may be vacant, but others are, you know, many are under market rents. And if all units are vacant, you're likely to get into a bidding war. I found this in numerous times where it just was just a hot property. Every investor knew that they can get market rents, and it just ended up getting into a bidding war and went way over asking price. Here. And here's one example here that we came across in LA. This was a really great property. It was a duplex, 1 unit in the front, 1 in the back. A lot of extra land that could potentially, you know, in the future build maybe some additional units, or at least build an ADU. This one was a flip. Both units were able to be delivered vacant, which made it super attractive. 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Total square footage for the living was, you know, 1,711. A good sized lot of 8,655, with a lot of like extra like patio in the back, or you can convert it into a barbecue area for the tenants. And as you can see on the right hand side, those very large driveway, plenty of parking, even though this LA is kind of known to be very congested with street parking, but it doesn't matter with this property because the tenants could just, you know, have easy access for parking. It also, each unit had laundry services. So, I mean, they had, this was a really good fit. This was a really good property. But with that, it was super competitive. You know, like with the asking price of $599, it ended up selling for $650,000 to an FHA buyer. And it only lasted 8 days in the market. And I noticed, I went back earlier yesterday, I noticed they rented out one of them for $2,200. So I think one of them was owner occupied. So not bad if their mortgage payment was roughly about maybe $3,800, and they're collecting $2,200 in rent, and they're just paying the difference. So this was a really good purchase for whoever got it. Let's see here. And go to the next example. This one here was one that I was personally involved with. I was able to represent the buyers on this one. This was a good pickup as well. A duplex again, 2-bedroom, 1-bath each. A little bit larger on the living square footage, a little bit over 2,100 square feet. The nice thing on this one was also was able to be delivered vacant. This was 2 ladies that lived in 1 unit each, and they basically were co-owners, and they sold the property and moved up north. So it was a good property, corner lot. As you can see on the bottom picture there's 3-car garage, which was really nice for parking. Each unit has their own private patio, laundry room in the back. So had everything that would make it attractive to rent it out. And currently we're renting out each unit for $2,000 per unit. One of them's actually already rented out, and we're probably on the verge of selecting a tenant pretty soon. So this again was a good purchase. So good cash flow on this one. And we got this one here. This is another duplex. This is in El Sereno. I love this property just from the location and being a duplex. It was really close to Cal State LA. Great for student rental or student housing. The challenge was you had students renting the top unit, which were paying $2,600, which is great. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. The bottom unit's also 3-bedroom, 1-bath. However, there was that tenant was paying $570, and that tenant was pretty much grandfathered in at that rate. Other than you can just do the normal, yearly rent increase what the city of LA would allow. But with that rent being so low, it just didn't make sense. And this one went into escrow, and I kept an eye on it, and ended up just falling out of escrow and then just expired. I think the seller just decided not to sell it and keep it. But property itself was great, just numbers wise it just didn't make sense. And let's see here. And I think that's it for this quick recap on the LA market. There's a lot of details to cover. However, I just wanted to give a little snapshot on what to expect when you're searching for investment properties in the LA market. And I hope that was very useful for you. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mark Prather, who's our next speaker. And I know he has a lot to say. Thank you. Okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
Mark?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, now I need to get to my PowerPoint. How do I get to a PowerPoint on here? It says share screen, but where's my PowerPoint?
And for those of you who do have questions, we're going to have, after the last presentation, we'll be asking those to the group so they can answer for you. So just hang in there.
Okay, terrific. All right, just a little background on myself. You can see is was mentioned earlier, I'm the founder of Mark One Mortgage and Mark One Wealth Academy, author of Why the Rich Stay Rich and the Poor Stay Poor, and I've been in the real estate industry since 1977. What we're going to talk about is financial independence without saving money. All of us want to be financially independent. We want to be as financially secure as possible. But the reality is 77% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and 80% of Americans, if they were to retire, they'd run out of money within 5 years. The reason for this is that the belief system in this country is 65% of Americans have either an IRA or 401k, and they believe that saving money in this IRA or 401k is their only path to financial security. The IRA and the 401k has failed people miserably. The financial situation in this country it's tragic. It's really what it is. 10% of the people own 90% of the wealth. So the question I have is, what do you believe is possible for your life financially? Because here's the truth of it. And this is why I wrote the book and created the Mark Wealth Academy, is what is possible for you is so beyond what you believe. I'm going to share with you a little bit about this path. I've learned this journey, but it's because in this country, people are only taught one way, which is save money in a retirement account. This is a chart from Goldman Sachs, and basically what you can see here is in 1989, a little over 30 years ago, which is the dark blue. These dark blue numbers reflect the wealth that the Americans had in these different categories. Now, this is the bottom 50%. Here's the middle class, the 50 to 90 percentile. So what you'll notice, from 1989 to 2016, so in about 30 years, the middle class, their wealth share in this country has dropped dramatically to where now it was about 17, 18%. Now it's down to about 7%. The top 10%, which here's 9%, here's 0.9%, and the top 1/10. But the top 10% own 93% of the wealth in this country. That's where we are today. Saving money is not a path to forget about wealth. It's not a path to financial security or financial independence. So what does it mean to be rich? Does it mean a big house, fancy car? That's what I used to think when I was a young guy. That's exactly what I grew up in Compton, California. Nobody in my family had any money. None of my friends had any money. I started from ground zero, and this is what I believe being rich was. But that's not what rich is. That's not what financial independence is. Financial independence is about non-employment income. Now, here's why I call it non-employment income. Through the years, I've probably taken thousands of loan applications. And when I ask someone, how much do you make per month or per year, they all know. But when I ask them, how much non-employment income do you make? They have no idea what I'm talking about. And the reality is they're making no non-employment income. And here's why I call it non-employment income. Non-employment income could be investment income, passive income, Social Security, pension, or whatever. But the point is, rich is replacing your employment income. If we don't replace your employment income, you're never going to be able to retire. And very few people, in fact, less than 10% of the people in this country have any strategy, any path to replace their employment income because of this false or inaccurate belief that saving money is their path to financial security. As I mentioned, my parents are 18 years older than I am. Neither one my father didn't even get to high school. I have 14 aunts and uncles just on my father's side, another 14 on my mother's side. That's 28. God knows how many cousins I have. Not one of my aunts and uncles got through high school. Today, if I was to add up the net worth of everybody in my family, it wouldn't be $100,000. And we're talking probably 100 people. It's because very few people change their life's circumstance because of what they believe. I've made the journey, and here's my point. I've made this journey from zero. When I say zero, not only zero financially, but zero knowledge-wise. And I've learned some incredibly powerful wealth-building strategies that I'm going to share with you. But here's the biggest challenge that I have with helping you to change your life, is your fear. We all have this, right? It's the biggest challenge we will ever face in life. It's in our head. It's the struggle of fear and doubt. That voice in your head is going to tell you you can't change your life. You can't make more money. Your life can't be better. It can. And I'm going to show you the beginning path of how we can change your life in a powerful and profound way. See, saving money is not the way to financial independence and wealth. There are 3 secrets to becoming financially secure, then financially independent, and seriously wealthy. First one, secret number 1 is growing wealth without saving money. I'm going to show you how to grow wealth without saving money. Number 2 is how to create exponential wealth by making money many different ways. See, this is the big secret that I learned. This is what the wealthy know. The top 10%, do you think those 10% that own 93% of the assets in this country got there by saving money in a 401k or an IRA? You know they did. Here's how they got here is number 2, is they learned how to grow wealth exponentially, which means make money simultaneously. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And secret number 3 is building wealth is not about saving money. The wealthy know that. The middle class and the poor think it's all about saving money. Get a 401k or IRA and save money. It's not. It's about how to accumulate assets. So the old false belief to have a safe financial life is get a good education, get a good job, set up a retirement account with a 401k or IRA, and save as much as you can. And hope one day it'll be enough. But how many people do you know that this old belief has failed, where they've struggled financially their entire life? I'm a baby boomer. Baby boomers are in the worst retirement shape of any generation because this old false belief system has failed them. There's a better strategy. The key is to learn how to build wealth without saving money. In these 3 secrets, here's where it starts with this. Growing wealth on autopilot, it begins with owning a home. When you buy a home, what happens is over time, the property gradually goes up and the loan balance goes down. And today, we call that equity. Today, equity is growing at a rate faster than ever, and I mean ever in history. And here's why. Because interest rates are unbelievably low. People are generating wealth at an incredible clip. But here's the problem. They're building this massive amount of wealth on autopilot without saving money, but they don't know how to turn it into non-employment income. It's all about having a strategy to generate non-employment income that will replace your employment income. With a retirement account, the whole game plan is save as much as you can and then live on that money. So secret number 2 is creating exponential wealth using the 5 economic benefits of real estate. Real estate is the only asset class where you make money 5 different ways simultaneously. But most homeowners don't know this. They have no idea. Number 3 is building wealth is not about saving money. It's about mastering wealth building strategies through real estate. So here's what I'm talking about. And this is what I learned over my journey. And this is the life-altering element that I can bring to your life. It's about learning wealth-building strategies. See, each one of you is at a different place in life. Maybe you're 28, maybe you're 58. Wherever you are, age is a huge factor. Are you a renter? Are you a homeowner? Do you already have an investment property? But it's learning how to use these 5 economic benefits. And in my book, I explain not only the 5 economic benefits, but I also explain about what I call the science of building wealth. There are 7 principles to wealth growth strategies. These principles have never been brought to consumers before. You know, I started this journey about 5.5 years ago when I wrote this book. What I've learned is the biggest challenge is getting people to open their mind to what is possible. Now, I know what you're thinking is that you're thinking, don't you need a lot of money to buy real estate? And the truth is, no. In today's world, there are so many down payment closing cost assistance programs where you only need about $500 to buy a property. Now, I'm going to show you a quick presentation that will illustrate what I'm talking about. Okay. All right, let me change the camera here, and you can see my desk. I'm going to give you this little presentation, okay? All right. The red chips represent your money. These are poker chips. So the first Let's say you put $1 into the bank, and let's say you get 1%. So $1, 1%, so it's 1 cent. Now the first challenge is that 1%, in fact, you're not even going to get 1%. It's not very much money. But you're actually losing money because inflation's running closer to 3%. The second challenge is that when you have money in the bank, is that it's not going to grow. And so we need to create this income from that. So you're losing money with inflation. But here's the worst part of this, is that this is called linear wealth growth. And what that means is you're only making money on your money. Now let's say we put another $1 in your retirement account, in your 401k IRA, and it goes into the stock market. And let's say you get 8%. Now 8% is way better than 1%, right? But here's the problem, is it's still linear wealth growth, meaning you're only making money on your money. Here's the way the wealthy do it. Let's say you take the same $1 and you buy a $10 property. So 10% down, you borrow $9 from the bank. Where do you think you're going to make more money? On a $10 asset or a $1 asset? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Let's say you get 8% growth rate in your retirement account after money management fees, which means you're making more like 9.5%. That's remarkable return. Most people in the retirement accounts are averaging more like 4.5%. Let's say you only get 5% in real estate. So 5% of $1 is 5 cents, but 5% of $10 is 50. So let's put 50 out here. We got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now, remember I said there's 5 economic benefits. Well, we've only covered 2. The first one is leverage, meaning that only $1, 10% is your money, 90% is the bank's money. But even though the bank provided 90% of the money, you own 100% of the property. So you own 100% of the property, so you get 100% of the profits. So 5% appreciation. We've only covered 2 economic benefits, and we've already blown away the stock market. But there's 3 more. The next one is rental cash flow. If you own a home and you were to turn it into a rental, then you would start to collect rental income. Next is principal reduction, meaning that every time you make a mortgage payment, a percentage of that payment is principal and a percentage is interest. Again, because interest rates are at all-time record lows, the percentage of your payment that is principal is more than it's ever been in history. And then the 5th and final economic benefit is tax write-offs. Real estate has preferred tax status. You can write off, if it's your home, you can write off mortgage interest, some of the property taxes. But if it's a rental, then you get more write-offs. You get 2 additional write-offs. One is the depreciation, and that's a little bit longer explanation, but basically what it is in a nutshell is you get to write off the structure that is on the property, not the land, but the structure itself gives you another big tax write-off. And in the most recent Tax Reform Act, we received 20% of your income is tax-free through real estate. No other asset class has these benefits. But I'm going to tell you the biggest advantage, what I call the secret sauce to real estate. It's the advantage that real estate has over every asset class, bar none. Stock, silver, gold, you name it. Real estate has an advantage that creates wealth growth at a level that no other asset class can compete with. And here's what this is, and if you don't remember anything else I say, write this down. It's called the utility value. Now remember, I said, let's say you were to turn your home into a rental. You rent your house, you're collecting this money. You get the renter's money, you borrowed money from the bank. So the bank provided you the loan. You take the rental income that you can collect from selling the usage, which is the utility value, we call that rent. We take the tenant's money and pay off your loan. Now I'm going to repeat that. You borrowed this money, you owe this money, but we sell the utility. If the tenant pays off your loan, isn't this free money? If I loaned you money and Sal paid it off for you, wouldn't that be free money? And it absolutely is. Real estate is the only asset that you can create massive amounts of free money. I mean, hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars if you understand these dynamics. See, when you put money in stocks, what do you get? Stock certificates, you get a monthly statement. How much is that monthly statement? Who's going to pay you money to hold your monthly statement? No one. So this is the beginning of understanding the wealth growth dynamics that I talked about with real estate compared to every other asset class. But you can see now, and here's the amazing thing to me. 65% of the people are here, right here in 401k or an IRA. 8% are over here with investment real estate. Why do you think only 8% are here and 65% are here? You know the answer, right? They don't know any better. They don't know any better. And I didn't know any better either once upon a time. This is the beginning, and these are where we do the wealth building strategies through our consultation. And Sal can tell you more about how we schedule and we do live consultations, we do them online and so on. And if you want more information, you can go to my website, mark1wealthacademy.com, and you can see mark1wealthacademy.com. You can learn more about what we're doing. And if you go to the website, what I would encourage you to do is you'll see video testimonials. Click on the video testimonials. These are videos after our client consultations where we get feedback from the people. And I want you to see the excitement and the happiness in their face because of what they have learned, because what we've taught them is how to change their life in a powerful and a profound way, is they've learned the secret of how to go from where they are to financial independence and even serious wealth without ever saving any money. Because saving money is not required, they know they can do it. And that's when everything changes. So I hope this has got you a little bit inspired for what is possible for your life, because I can assure you it's so much more than you know. John, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Mark, and I'm always impressed. And you're right, I do love the way that you break it down so simply and so visually with the poker chips. So thank you for doing that. And again, Mark, I did put into the chat for those of you who are attending. There is a link to Amazon. Mark's book, "Why the Rich Get Rich, Why the Poor Stay Poor," is available on there. And Mark will be answering some questions at the end of this event. We've only got a little ways to go, but we have an incredible presenter coming up next. I want to introduce you to Phil Atwan. I want to introduce you to Phil Atwan. Phil, again, he serves as the co-founder and the senior VP of Exchange Resources Incorporated, and that is one of the largest independent qualified intermediaries, or as we call them, accommodators for 1031 exchanges in the United States. And Phil is an in-demand speaker. He's a wonderful guy, and he is one of the foremost experts on 1031 exchanges. And as you will learn from him, 1031 exchange is crucial for you to be able to do what Mark has talked about, to continue to build that wealth and defer the massive taxes that come along with it. So Phil, take it away.
Don, thank you, and good evening, everybody. It's good to be with you tonight. Welcome to my home here in Whittier. I'm happy to share this with you. I do speak at about 130 to 180 now. Seminars a year, and I hope this is, by the way, I just really liked that last presentation. I thought it was fantastic. Why? Because I believe in it. I never read the book, but I still believe what he said, because that's what we've been doing. And I'd like to share with you what happens after a while, after you've owned investment property. So why don't we just kind of take it away. John, I take it you can see my PowerPoint?
Yep.
All right, cool. Good. Well, let's take it away. What is the benefit of owning investment property? Why does my wife and I do this? Why do a lot of you who are watching this seminar tonight own property? There's really three reasons. Number one, and I think everything we're saying is really in harmony with each other tonight, with both speakers, including myself. Number one, monthly income. Why? Because getting an income every month is what it's all about. Now, I was thinking about this earlier with the first presentation with Sal. I mean, if you have one front door, like a condo or a single family, well, you get paid each month your non-work salary, right? These are properties that are working for you, so you don't have to. So one front door. But if you have like a duplex, well, then you're going to get paid twice a month. If you have a fourplex, you get, or 4 single families or 4 condos, then you get paid every week. If you have 30 of these doors, you get paid every single day, every month. Monthly income is really broken down into 2 categories, cash flow and rate of return, and they're both different. And we'll try to touch on that in our kind of limited time that we have this evening. Number 2, I want to have my cake and eat it too. I not only wanted to appreciate, I only wanted to make cash flow, but I also wanted to be worth more in the future. You know, people keep saying, is this a bad time to buy? Is this a good time to buy? Well, let's put it this way, folks. Regardless of where you are and when you've bought your properties, if you have, the bottom line is, even though it, like the stock market, like the seasons, today, pretty hot. But in a few more months, you're going to be putting on a jacket because it's going to be cold. Seasons change, and so does the cycles of real estate. But overall, they continue to go up over time, even if real estate has problem. Over time, this is not get rich quick. This is something that takes time. Number 3, not only do I want income, not only do I want it to be worth more, I need a tax write-off. Why? Because the more you make, the more the government takes. And they want more and more and more, especially with this COVID thing that we've been through. We've already borrowed, what, at least $3 trillion additional to the debt of the country. And on top of that, the states and the counties and the cities, they're all running negatives. You need tax write-offs. Why? Because the more you have, the more they're going to look at you. That 10% that we were just talking about, well, guess where they're going to get the tax money from? It's not going to be on the guy on the 1% who makes nothing, or the 50% really who really doesn't make that much money. They're looking at for the upper 50%, people who own property, and that's the beauty of investment real estate. You get to depreciate the amount of the building over time. If it's residential, you get to write it off for 27.5 years. If it's commercial, you get to write it off. But the bottom line is depreciation allows you to reduce the amount of taxes you pay on the rent so you can keep more of it. These are the 3 things that motivate people like me and any of us who own investment real estate: income, appreciation, and depreciation, which is tax write-offs. But the question is, how do I get more from the rentals I have? We just heard about paying down, using the tenant's income to pay down the equity. But the question is, how do we get more from our property? So let's say each one of us own 2 properties. Everyone listening to my voice, including me, we each own 2 properties, property A and property B. Property A is paid off or has much more equity than the second property that we own, is property B. That's really the only difference. They're both, these single family rentals are on the same street, in the same city, it's the same floor plan, in the same condition. They were both purchased in the same year. There's nothing really different except equity-wise. A has got more equity than B. So the first thing is income. How do we compare and how do we get more? Well, the answer is, we said there's a difference between income. It's called cash flow and rate of return. First question is, which property would give us a higher cash flow? Well, the answer would be pretty obviously A. Why? Because it's got no loan or a very minimal amount of loan on it. So that would go to A. But what about a rate of return? And you say, well, what does that mean? Well, when you take the amount of equity that's in the building based on the amount of rent it can generate and expenses to the property, which property actually gives you more return on the equity that's in the building? The answer almost every single time is going to be property B. Why? Because A can't charge more rent than B can, though B has much less equity in it. Does that make sense? Your actual rate of return on the dollar that it brings in on rent is actually higher on B because it has much less equity. It could still pull harder, whereas A is getting a little bit on the lethargic side. See, A is really good in terms of people who are in their 70s and older. Why? They want to pay off their properties. Why? So they can keep 100% of the cash flow. There's no debt on the property, so they keep 100% of the income, and that's what fuels their future. Just like we were just hearing. Which one will appreciate faster, A or B? The answer is they're going to appreciate the same amount. Just because A has more equity, it doesn't mean it's going to appreciate faster because they're identical properties on the identical street and with the same square footage and same floor plans. Number 3, which one will give you more tax deductions? Well, they'll both be able to be depreciated, which is great. And they were both bought at the same time, so the depreciation will be the same amount, but A's got that precious what? Tax write-off off the interest. There's no limit to the amount of interest. We heard about the Tax Reform Act just a minute ago, but the bottom line is the Tax Reform Act does not limit interest on a rental. It does on your single-family principal residence, your second home or your vacation home, but not your rental. 100% write-off. So really, how do you make more money? I can tell you what happened. You see in the bottom of this screen where in red where it says leverage for growth? A needs to get married and have babies. What does that mean? Equity has to come out of A to buy more properties, to buy more doors. You see that equity that's grown over time is going to be utilized to buy more buildings. So those buildings will do what? Create cash flow, create income and a rate of return that will also, now you're appreciating with multiple properties in the future, not just one. And then lastly, you'll have tax write-offs on each property. Your Schedule E will be full on your tax return, and your CPA will charge you a lot of money for your return, but boy, will you be making a lot of money. So the bottom line is, it's all about releveraging the equity before you get to 70, because after you get to 70, you need the properties for income. So let's just say, how does the government then charge you taxes? Let's say I'm going to sell the property. I could refinance it and buy some others, but it might be to my benefit to sell it and then to acquire other properties. So the question is, will the government tax me anytime I sell property? The same is true of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever. Where there's equity, there's the government who wants their part of it. So well, how does the CPA computate this? Well, very quickly, they look at what they sold the property for. So if I sold the property for $1 million, but I bought it for 300 once upon a time, and I put some capital improvements on there, depreciation will factor and lower the basis, adding closing costs will factor in, so that $300,000 purchase price that I bought the property for once before is adjusted on the basis. Let's say it's $400,000 with all of number 2 that's factored in. They subtract what I bought it for, or the adjusted basis of the property, from the sales price. The difference is what the government calls is my capital gain, and your capital gain is what you pay taxes on. Now the big question is, since you're selling to releverage, how much does the government want from that? Well, number 1, between 15 to 20% to the IRS. That's quite a bit. Number 2, wait, 20% of what? Of the $600,000. You mean all that time and all my blood, sweat, and tears and the chance and the risk I take, they want 20% of the $600,000 capital gain? The answer is yes, but that's just not it. They also want number 2, the Obamacare tax. It's the healthcare program. You have to pay for that on any sale of any real estate, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, over $200,000 of gain to an individual, or $250,000 as a married couple. They want an additional 3.8% to go into the healthcare program. Number 3, California wants to be paid. Currently, our state tax is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 13.3%, depending on your tax bracket. On what? The answer is on the $600,000. And then lastly, they're going to charge you a recapture of depreciation tax. That's when, remember we just talked about what a good thing it is that the government allows you to write off the property. Well, guess what else they say? They say, we're going to let you write it off, but when you sell the property, we're going to give you a tax bill on the tax write-off that we gave you. And if you didn't utilize the depreciation when you had the chance to actually write it off, they're still going to charge you an additional 25% of all the allowable depreciation that you were able to take, that was allowable for you to take, whether you took it or not. That's what it costs in taxes. Generally speaking, that's going to cost you between 28 and 45% of that gain. In 1921, our Congress, back in 1921, created this thing called a 1031 tax deferred exchange. The 1031 is part of the tax code. What did it allow us to do? It allows us to sell that property, property A that we were just talking about, the one that was heavier in equity, and to be able to re-leverage the equity into other purchases, whether it's one or multiple properties, for the purpose of, and I hope you get this, it isn't just to not pay tax, because the tax deferred exchange means you don't have to pay that previous page that we just looked at. You get to defer that by taking this equity and acquiring better income producing properties that will also appreciate and create tax write-offs, especially if you buy up. It allows you to create more front doors that are going to pay you rent. And that's what you want. You want more doors paying you rent till you get one a day. And you want them to all appreciate. See, when appreciation happens, guess what happens? You can have all your equity in one property, or you can diversify that equity into multiple properties, so all those properties are going up in value. And that's the purpose of the 1031 tax deferred exchange. Will I eventually pay the taxes? People say, you know, I've deferred. And the answer is yes, if you eventually sell and not exchange. But why would you want to do that? Because you see, you're getting income. You're getting cash flow as you get older from these properties. And it's huge. It's going to be more probably than you're going to be able to spend, which means you can give away a lot of money and help other people. But the whole point is, if you have a trust that either hold title to the property, or you have a trust that is a shareholder of the LLCs that protect your property, and you pass, it goes to your surviving spouse or your children or whoever your heirs are at a stepped-up basis. Do you know what that means? That means if something happens to you and you have that old $300,000 basis of what you bought for way back at the beginning, and now you're talking $5 million, $6 million, $7 million, $8 million worth of value, it goes to your family at that value at the date of death. You need to work with an estate planning attorney and or a CPA, but they can help you set these things up, and the government allows you to do that today. What's going to happen in the future? Depends on this election. So how do you set up a 1031 exchange? Your realtor, like Sal, when they take your listing to sell your property, is going to put language in your contract that allows you to bring in a third-party facilitator, also known as an accommodator, also known as a qualified intermediary. That's what our company does. We facilitate these exchanges all over the country. We set them up with the escrow company before escrow closes. I get a lot of phone calls. And unfortunately, 2 phone calls I get each week is, I need to set up a 1031 exchange. I say, sure, give me the name of the escrow officer. We'll call them up and set up your exchange. And you know what they tell me? Escrow closed last week, or escrow closed yesterday. Well, folks, it became a taxable event. The government's going to keep all that money we just talked about when you sold. And that's a real shame. That's why you need to speak to people like Sal or John, or whoever your realtor happens to be. Now, the government says that you could only certain properties qualify for a 1031 exchange. And here's the qualification. There's only 3. It's either residential or commercial property that you own that pays you rent each month. Or you have a property that you hold your business in. That's also exchangeable. Or you own vacant land as investment. A lot of people have bought that. Don't you wish you bought a property down at the beach, 10, 15, or 20 years ago, vacant land? How much is that worth today? So which properties are not eligible? Well, your principal residence, it's never eligible. You get the 121 principal residence exclusion on your principal residence, but not a 1031 exchange. How about my second home, my vacation home? The answer is no, those don't qualify. That you have to pay 100% of the tax on if you sell it. How about if I have a business? The answer is no. You can exchange the property that your business is in, the property itself, but not the business or its assets. So that's what qualifies. The government says it has to be a like-kind property. So if I'm selling a condo, can I exchange into a commercial building? The answer is yes. Why? Because remember we said that if it's held for business or rent or for investment, it qualifies. So that means you could sell any one of those three and buy any one of those three. And that's what like-kind property is. It means you can't buy a second home or vacation home or a principal residence. That's really what it means. That you can buy these properties anywhere in the country. Now there's 5 different ways of doing it, but due to our time limit tonight, which I think I'm almost finished with my time because I forgot to set my timer, John. I was so excited to get on. I forgot to put my 20-minute timer on. So I'm just going to talk about the real basic. And this is what most people do. It's called a delayed exchange. The government says you set up the exchange through a company like ours who facilitates exchanges before escrow closes. And then once the sale closes, the government says we're going to hold you accountable to 2 time periods. Number 1, you have 180 days, which is just a little less than 6 months. 180 days to close escrow on whatever investment properties, units, commercial building, vacant land, whatever you want to buy that's like kind, you can go into. But you have to close an escrow on the new properties within 180 days. Number 2, the first 45 days is the cutoff. It's the deadline to submit properties. And under the 3 property rule, you can name up 3 properties and acquire any one of those properties or multiple of those properties, whichever you wish. And you can buy them in different parts of the country. You're not limited to LA County. There's something called a reverse exchange now, where the government allows you to close the purchase first because now you want to secure or you have opportunity on a good property to acquire, and then close the sale up to 180 days later. The IRS requirements is that all the cash from the sale needs to go into the acquisition, and any debt or mortgage that's paid off when you close your sale must be reborrowed on the new property. What does that look like? Well, if you sold that property for $1 million and you have closing costs, you have to pay commissions and escrow and title and transfer taxes and recording fees and exchange fees. Those are all called non-recurring costs to sell. It's a one-time cost to sell the property. So let's say it costs you $70,000. That leaves you $930,000 left over from your $1 million sale. But if you have existing loans or debt on the property, and let's say you have a first or a line of credit or a HELOC or whatever it happens to be, let's say the total payoff of debt is $400,000 when you close your sale. Well, that leaves you $530,000 left out of your $1 million sales price. Well, the government says all the $530,000 needs to go into the purchase, and the mortgage of $400,000 was paid, which was paid off, must be what? Reborrowed onto the purchase of the new property. So either way, whether you have a property that's paid off or whether you have debt on the property, your minimum new purchase price has got to be no less than $930,000. Basically, what we've got is I've got some marketing pieces. One is called, oops, I hit the wrong button. One is called 7 Important Questions Every Investor Needs to Ask. Like, how do I generate more cash flow? How do I measure what my rate of return is on my property? I've got something for you that you can utilize because it's based on your income minus your expenses. And then the net is your difference. Then you divide it by the equity, and it tells you what your actual rate of return is on your property. Remember property A, property B? It tells you what your rate of return is. And most likely, B is probably going to be a higher rate of return. But the bottom line is that when you get older, like me, I'm not 70, but when you begin to get towards that number, that's when you probably want to begin to start paying off those properties. But the bottom line is that, I've got this information like this available to you. If you'd like it, you could send me an email, philatwan@gmail.com. My phone number's up there if you have any questions regarding the 1031 exchange. I hope that politically you pay attention. This November, one party is trying to eliminate, as I already said, that if they're elected, they're going to eliminate the exchange, and that they also want to eliminate the stepped up basis. I'm not here to be political. I'm not here to tell you how to vote. But I am telling you, if something like this is very important to you, as it is to most investors, you may want to pay attention to that before you cast your ballot. Thank you for having me, John. What an honor and a privilege to be with you and all your clients here tonight. I hope this was helpful. If there's any questions, I'm always happy to help out. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Phil. I'm going to leave that on for just a bit longer because I want, in case anybody wants to jot down your contact info. But we are so pleased to have had you and have had all of our panelists. And now I'm going to be bringing them all back up. And here we go. So I do want to ask a few questions because we did get some questions as you guys were presenting. So is everybody? You guys have a few more minutes for us?
Yes, that's fine.
Excellent. So we're getting questions in a few different places here. So pardon me while I'm taking a look. One question, and this was asked by Mike while Sal, you were presenting. If you buy a unit like this, are you mandated to keep the current tenant? So I'm imagining it's one of the examples you gave, Sal. So what kind of answer would you give?
So, hey, Mike, good question. So right now during this pandemic, there is the statewide moratorium. So currently right now, unfortunately, you would be inheriting the tenants, assuming you are willing to proceed with the sale and close on that property with those current tenants. So there's no evictions currently being allowed to file. So whatever tenants are there, you would be inheriting them. That's why it's so important to really look for properties that are vacant or can be delivered vacant. That is the key. And that, in my opinion, that has tremendous value.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. And we actually have we have got one person with a hand raised. Winston, I can enable you if you're ready and you can ask your question. And Winston, while you're getting that set up, if you want, you can unmute your mic and you can ask your question.
Just a quick question as to what areas here in Southern California would you recommend investing in? What areas have a higher demand, a better appreciation rate, a better rental rate? If you guys could expand on that, that'd be great.
All right. Thank you, Winston. Sal, do you want to start with that?
Sure. So that's a good question. So the LA County and Orange County do have a really high demand. You'll get higher rents for certain, but the prices of the homes are naturally higher, as you can imagine or already know. The cap rates or capitalization rates are probably a little slimmer in the LA and Orange counties, but you will, the appreciation will probably be, higher over time. Inland Empire is a really good area to get a higher rate of return or higher cap rate as well. That would be a good area to look into. Riverside County, San Bernardino County.
Yeah, Mark or Phil, do either of you want to contribute to that as well?
Yeah, I'd like to contribute to that. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. And this is it's a great question, and it's an important reason why you want to do a wealth consultation. What you have to decide is what's more important to you, growing wealth or creating income. To give you an example, is, Sal mentioned the cap rate, the capitalization rate. In communities where there's a high capitalization rate in Los Angeles, what that generally means is if the and the capitalization rate means there's a high income in relationship to the value of the property. So you're going to get a lot of income, but let's say a property in a really rough neighborhood in Los Angeles might have a high cap rate, but the wealth growth or the appreciation growth is going to be very low. Conversely, let's go to the other extreme. You go to the beach and you have a property that's either on the beach or within a block or two. The cap rate is going to be microscopic. But what's going to happen is the demand for beachfront property is always there. So where do you think you're going to grow more wealth? On a property within 2 blocks of the ocean, or one in let's say South Central Los Angeles? So what's important is your age is relevant. Are you looking to grow wealth more quickly? Are you looking to grow income? And where your age is a huge factor, where you are financially, what kind of disposable income do you have? So the important point is to simply say you're going to become wealthy buying real estate is no more true than to say if you buy stocks, you're going to become wealthy. You need to know what you're doing, and we need to do these kinds of analysis. And this is one of the big things we do in our consultations, is I've created 14 different proprietary custom calculators that make complicated conversations fast and easy to understand. And when you understand, see, people they don't make decisions because they're petrified. Why are they petrified? Because they don't know, they don't understand. When you understand, then it's easy to make these decisions.
Excellent
I think
answer,
Mark
Mark.
is right on target. I mean, I completely agree. It depends on where you are at that time of life. If you're a little bit towards the older end or the middle or younger, I mean, obviously, the sooner you can invest. You know what the number one regret is of investors? And that's all I do is work with over the last 22 years. The answer is the number one regret is I should have bought more when it was less expensive. But they didn't know it was less expensive at the time, right? So it's just like they're looking at now. What is it going to look like in 10 years in terms of maybe that $500,000 dump is going to cost $1 million. Who knows? But the whole point is that investment seems to keep going up, and investors want to buy. They just are attracted to Southern California. You can go out of state. You can get a higher cap rate. You can go and get a better cash flow in other places, and an income rate, a better rate of return, really. But you're not going to see much growth of equity. So it depends, just like Mark says, what are you looking for? Some people like to co-own, where they buy tenant in common type, where they can buy a fractionalized interest with other people and other properties. There's all they're called DSTs. The whole point is there's just different ways of acquiring property. The whole point is to figure out what's going to be best for you and ultimately start making the move.
Hey, that's an excellent portion, guys. And just to contribute, it's not a one size fits all. I do know cash flow properties are very strong in the Inland Empire. But one of the things you really want to look at, as Phil was saying, was your internal rate of return. There's lots of professionals, lots of agents who will not talk to you in this context, but knowing over the life and the holding period and the disposition, so the sale of the property, what your true rate of return will make a big difference in your decision making. And I know that Sal and Mark can help you with that. And obviously Phil's got his math ready as well. So thank you, guys. Next question. And this is for you. Let's see, Mark. Mike asks, how much is a wealth consultation?
If you work with Sal, if Sal's your agent, then there's no charge. It's courtesy. It's complimentary.
That's an excellent price. If you work with Sal Salinas and Mark, goose egg. I like to hear that.
Where we make our money is doing the financing.
Perfect. So you guys make a good team. And let's see. We had one here, and this is a comment, but Lynette says, she says, you all gave a great presentation, and Mark, because of your class, I bought a property that included a 500 square foot extra garage that soon will be an apartment.
Awesome.
So Lynette is, she's enjoying some extra income there as well. That's great.
Can I address that real quick, John?
Yes.
You know, Sal mentioned the term ADU, but he didn't explain it. So let me say accessory dwelling unit. If you are not familiar with accessory dwelling units, you can Google it, but this is an epic opportunity, and particularly in Los Angeles County. And what an accessory dwelling unit is it's the state of California, there is a serious housing shortage problem. The demand for housing is massive. The state of California brought in this accessory dwelling unit a couple years ago. They modified it, and so accessory dwelling units, basically, it's in a nutshell, what it's doing is the state of California has created laws that supersede the local city laws, and so it basically allows homes that to be converted essentially into a duplex from just a single family to a 2-unit. And why Los Angeles works so well is because it's an older county. There's the key is you got to have some land to do this. So you can put them on. There's converting the garage on top of the garage in the backyard, but it's a fantastic strategy. The return on investment. We all want to know what's the best return on investment. I'm going to tell you right now. It's buy single family and add an ADU. Your ROI and your cash flow is going to be off target. There's no other way you're going to compete with that. So in fact, this is something, Sal, we should do a whole class on. There's another webinar on just ADUs.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, Mark.
And okay, and the next question, this actually came in also, Mark, while you were presenting, Yusuf asks, Mark, how can one invest in properties repeatedly when 25% down payment is required? Someone like me can invest in one property, but to come up with a second 25% down is very difficult. Do you want to address that?
Yes. Yeah. Here's what you want to do is when you on your home is you want to get a line of credit. You get an equity line of credit, and now sometimes like right now with rates so incredibly low, just refinance and you pull the money out. But basically what's going to happen is as the property value goes up, the loan balance goes down. You're creating all this wealth on autopilot. You get a line of credit for, let's say, 100 grand on your property, and then every 2 to 4 years, depending on what your income situation is, you use that money, and that's how you keep turning it. But if you were to buy just one property every 4 to 5 years, and that is very easy to do in California with the growth rates, you're going to build the equity where at that level, and we can, again, this is something we show you in the consultation and the financial analysis. If you're 40 years old, you're going to need somewhere between a minimum of $10,000 to $15,000 a month in non-employment income to retire securely. You're never going to get there saving money in a 401k or IRA. You have zero chance of making that happen. But in real estate, because of this perpetual wealth growth, a line of credit is the way to go. And if you buy a property in your home, get a line of credit, because you can't get a line of credit on rentals. It's really, really difficult. But once you get a line of credit on your home, then you go buy another home, then get another line of credit. So now you have 2 lines of credit. And you play up. But again, don't do this willy-nilly. Do this within the confines of a structured plan so you understand all the financial dynamics, and we have a destination, meaning if you're 40 and you want to retire at 55, then let's have a 15-year plan to make that happen. So we want to, what's great about real estate is we can forecast wealth growth and income growth at a level unlike any other asset class. It's because of the demand for rents in California is, for 80 years, rents have been going up 3 to 4% in California statewide. Now, obviously, there's certain pockets that do much, much better than that. So this is the plan. It's all about having a plan.
All right, that sounds good. It sounds like getting involved in a consultation with Sal and Mark is one of the first steps. And then Yusuf had another question, and this was during. So Phil, I'll let you start because this was during your presentation, but then I want to open it to the group as well. Phil, what is a good rate of return?
That's really subjective, and that works differently for different people. Some people are only getting close to 3% rate of return. The higher the equity, the lower the rate of return, because you can't raise the rent just because you have more equity. You have to feel kind of comfortable in your skin. Some people feel like 4.5%, 5.5%, 6.5%. I mean, if you can find more than that, God bless you, go ahead and find it. But that would be difficult to find. The rate of return is going to be different from state to state and area to area. So again, what you feel comfortable with, because right now cap rates are very low, and they're just really tough to create, additional wealth because there's like 5 buyers for every 1 property, so that makes it difficult on cap rates. But you'll see a leveling off, you'll see a change, and eventually, guess what's going to happen, folks? Interest rates are going to go up. It's going to happen. I mean, when I first got into business, they had just dropped to 18.5%. Mark, do you remember those days?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, I remember.
I mean, so that was in 1982. So the bottom line, in 1981, they were really in the 20s. So, what's the good rate of return? That interest rate's going to have a lot to do with it, that's for sure. But that's why people like what Sal was saying, going into the Inland Empire and other places might be a good way to go. Some of you may want a property manager to work, especially as the property gets farther away, because it's too hard to keep on top of it, to be there when something happens. And a good, John, do you know any good property management companies? I mean, you might know of one, I think.
Yeah, I think I do know of a pretty good one. That'd be Century Commercial Property Management, which is affiliated with our company. And you bring that up, and especially, you're right, it is a very subjective thing. What is a good rate of return? It kind of depends on what your personal tolerance is. But even then, when we talk about cap rates, sometimes I'll see some investors who maybe aren't that savvy yet. They'll walk away from a deal because they see a cap rate that scares them. It's not quite what they'd wanted. But when you're able to sit down with an expert like Sal, like Mark, like Phil, you might be able to actually look at the math. I've seen properties that have, not that impressive of a cap rate, but because of the fundamentals unique to you in that deal, your internal rate of return is in the double digits. So it's really about do the math. There's no one size fits all. It's really about making sure you apply yourself and you can find the best deal possible.
Absolutely, John. And it's just like Mark said earlier. I mean, look, you're getting a cap rate on what? The entire thing. Remember, it's not your money. It's the bank's money. And you're making money off the bank's money. So I think Mark made a huge point with that.
Yeah. This question, when I talk to investors, and they'll ask me, they'll say, "Well, what's your cap rate?" And I say, "Well, the cap rates are relative to the different communities, but here's a more important question: what do you think is more important, cap rate or return on investment?" So I ask them, "What's more important, return on investment, meaning how much money you're going to make, or cap rate?" And they pause, and then they go, "Is this a trick question?" Well, return on investment, absolutely. And I want to share with you, I have one of my calculators I created. I did an analysis, and we take the 5 economic benefits that I showed you in the poker chips, and I showed an analysis of putting $100,000 down on a $500,000 property with 0% appreciation rate for 30 years versus putting that same $100,000 in the stock market and getting a 4% return. 0 versus 4, which investment do you think got a greater return on investment with 0% appreciation in real estate over 30 years versus 4% in stocks? the real estate outperformed because of the 5 economic benefits. Remember I talked to you about the free money. When you look at the free money where the lender, the borrower or the tenant is paying off that loan, the tax benefits, all of these factors, when you look at this, to get double digit, to get 10 to 20% return on investment on Southern California real estate is easy to do, but you have to know how to do it, number one. But more importantly is we need to tie this into your life circumstance. See, here's why I'm so passionate about this, is I want to help you make your life better. And here's what that means. It means analyzing where you are today, and it's not just about creating return on investment and massive wealth. Because here's what it's about, is we can create massive wealth, but if you're leveraged so far that you don't have income to retire on, you've created all this wealth, then you got to start selling all your assets. That's no good. So we need to have a plan that's tied to what your goals are, and your goals may be different than my goals. You may be more aggressive. You may be a bigger risk taker, or vice versa. You might be super conservative, and I got to push you to take a little bit of a leap. But it's important. But the return on investment, I'm telling you, to get 10% to 12% return is a piece of cake. I'll show you how to do that in the different areas. That I'm not worried about. What I want to do is tie it into where you are today, so we can get you to the financial freedom point on your timetable. And that's as soon as possible. I'll show you how to get yourself into that place where you can retire inside 15 years. And again, what's beautiful is you don't need to save any money.
Excellent. All right.